Hello and welcome back to the virtual classroom for Comp 3077 online. These videos in this virtual classroom playlist in YouTube are for the online students in Comp 3077 at the Lawrence Kinlan School of Business at Fanshawe College. We, however, do invite our face-to-face students to use them anytime for additional assistance, extra resources in case you can't make it to a class, that type of stuff. So hopefully you all got through week one unscathed. I know the videos are a bit longer. There's some additional content in week one, but you need to get set up. If you haven't done that yet, you need to go back to all the stuff in week one and get yourself all set up and oriented with the course so you can start submitting work. Assuming you have done that, let's press forward. So you'll notice my little screen in the bottom showing me on the video is no longer there. I'll probably be in there one more time for the introduction to the SAM quizzing in MindTap and the training, which will be a second video we'll do in week two, but that'll probably be it because I want you to get to know that there's an online professor here. I want you to see me at the beginning, but after that, it tends to interfere with the Excel workspace when the cases get a little more involved. So we just kind of remove it after that. So a couple things we're going to cover before we start the case. Going to go back through some YouTube tips as you're using the videos. Remember, you can always pause me, rewind me, slow me down, speed me up, all sorts of cool stuff. But I want to talk about YouTube chapters and the script in case you were ever to need that. Another reminder, you do need to purchase that. I'll talk about that in the next slide, actually. But reminder of weekly deadlines versus MindTap deadlines. I'm going to talk about that as soon as we leave the PowerPoint slides and get into the YouTube stuff as well. And then we're going to do the case, which is all about formatting. Also, a few other reminders. Always be saving, always be closing. Close your file. If you forgot to save the whole time, when you close your file, your Excel file, it will remind you, hey, don't you want to save this? And then I'll remind you about the 1% extra credit at the end of the case submission today. And that is in the case that you do purchase your MindTap resources and the ebook by the end of week two. There's an FOL submissions box where you can get 1% extra credit by providing a proof of purchase, which is another reminder to do that because as I showed everyone last week in the videos, you can start submitting work in this course right away for free. The resources to use online where we submit most of the work in this class outside of some stuff we do at the very beginning and plus the custom project, which is fairly heavily weighted in week 13. You submit everything else using the MindTap platform and you submit it through SAM, which is like a grading learning platform. So you can use this for free for now, but it's only free for the first 2 weeks. And then you'll still be able to get back into your account, but it'll keep reminding you to get that. And then at the end of this video, you're going to see another week 2 video for the SAM quizzes and training. So I'm just reminding you that there are 2 videos this week. Usually there's only 1, but weeks 1 and 2 have additional videos. Okay, so let's get into it. If we jump over here to course information, one of the first things you want to do each week is go right to the module and see what we're covering that week. So we're going to get into the modules and usually now you only see a couple files each week, unless it's a test week. And in week 13, we have all those additional instructions for the custom project. So you hop into your module details. I'm in Comp 3077, of course, my FOL course. We went over all this in the first video. I usually have a cool quote there, talk about the learning outcomes that are covered. And then what we're doing, there's always a link to the virtual classroom so you can go see this video. Don't forget to buy this. Okay, so that's a link to buy the book. And then there's something about language settings in there, which I will reverse back to this page when we get to that step in the case, and you'll understand why that's important. You may be fine with the language settings you have. It might not be a big deal. The publishers at Cengage keep telling me now that we don't have those issues anymore with the way these steps are marked when you're putting content in cells into certain formats. And then these are the steps we're covering. Everything in here is going to be, in addition to stuff you've already learned the previous week, right? Just basic inputting of data into cells, stuff like that. And as always, there'll be a list of graded assessments for that week, 3% case, 1% quiz. And here is that 1% extra credit I was talking about. And if you click on this, it will take you to the submissions box in FOL where you can do that. I'll remind you at the end of the case again. Mine looks a little different because it just shows you the actual submission box itself, but you would see a place to submit it. Okay, so we're going to log into Cengage in a second. Before we do, I want to swing back to the YouTube stuff I was talking about. So this is the week 1 video, which you'll see has chapters in it. So as soon as I post a video within, well, most of you are watching this with all the videos already posted. As I'm recording these at the end of 2025, I'm just building the video content up now. And once they're posted, they have chapters added to them. So you can jump around to the videos, to certain parts of them and review. And I try and focus and start the chapters at certain steps that might be more substantial than others. So steps people might get stuck on, so they can flip over that and look at the steps. And then once the video's been up for a day or two, which again, if you're watching these videos now and time has gone by, this should be there. There should be a link to the transcript. So what you have to do to get to that stuff, when you see the video and you pull it up, usually it'll just show you a little bit of a preview of the content in this box. And it'll do the same thing on your phone if you're watching it on your phone and using your monitor. It's a big help in this class to have two monitors if you happen to have the ability to do that. But I showed you last week, if you don't, you just use Alt-Tab to go back and forth in the instructions to the Excel file. But you'll see this little box there, and you have to click on More to get to that stuff. And then you'll see all the chapters, and you'll see the script there. Okay, so let's jump into Cengage and grab the week 2 case and get started. What else was I going to cover there? Oh, yeah, that. Okay, yes, and I spelled that wrong. I'm going to fix that. That's annoying. That would have been in my intro, too. I'm not going to... Anytime I mess up when I'm working on an Excel file, I always want to show you guys, I should mention this here, I always want to show you guys every single step completed 100% correctly, and then a 100% submission at the end. So you don't have to watch the video through, and without my telling you, like I did in week 1, where I messed up a step on purpose, only in that first week to show you how to download the file and resubmit if you need to fix anything. I will always, so in the case I screw something up as I'm recording the video, I usually don't go back and just dump the whole video. I make a note of that as I'm recording, and then I go back and fix that part. So you're always going to see 100% submission. That doesn't need to be in this list, but the reason I went back here was just to make sure I didn't forget to talk about this. So before we jump into Cengage, one more quick thing. And this is only at the beginning of weeks 1 and 2 where I have a lot of reminders like this, and then we just get right into the cases in the rest of the videos. But this isn't a long case, so this isn't a bad thing that we're covering this stuff. It'll still be a fairly short video. So if you go to your course homepage, assuming your professors have set this up, and most of them in this course always do have this set up on day 1, you'll see all these deadlines in here. And if you go to your course information, your course resources section, and FOL content, you'll see the same thing without the exact dates. But I even provide for this class, because it has evaluations so frequently, I provide this quick list. This does not mean that if you don't get the work done by the deadline, and then it talks about how usually the deadline is Sunday night. So I'm going to go back to the calendar here. So when you start your semester, you'll see these deadlines. So if you don't get the work done by the end of week 2, for example, where you have a week 2 SAM case due, and there's a week 2 SAM quiz due as well, it has to be done by midnight on Sunday. That is generally when the professors do it. It does not mean it will disappear from Cengage. So let's log into Cengage now. So we're starting our week 2 case. We go back to account.cengage.com. Quick reminder as well. I should have put this in the slides. This is all lots of reminders. It's just good to throw them out there. Please save whatever your username is, especially if you didn't use your FOL email and it's possible you might forget it. Just in case you have to work on a different computer for your test and it doesn't have your login saved. So when I go to sign in here, it's going to have my password saved. So if I forget it, it doesn't really matter, but I know what my password is anyway. I'm just saying, more than anything, make sure you know what your password is moving forward in the course. Have it saved in your phone in a notes file or something like that. So as soon as you get in, you'll see the course key you added to your login.cengage.com account last week. Of course, it's free to set up an account in there, and then you can add courses, and it's free for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, they ask you have to put in the course key to keep getting access. So every time you go in, you'll see the one you're working on for this course, which is Excel. You might have more in there if you've used this for other courses. And you open up MindTap, and until you put in the access code, which is what you have to purchase, which we went over all that in the MindTap video, where to get your resources, everything that's already been covered. It's in FOL. You would enter the access code here. If you still don't have it, you simply continue with temporary access. You go to week 2 and you start the case just like you did last week. This is going to be a routine you're going to get very used to every week. So as I'm doing this, I want to again remind you about this weekly deadline thing, because I've often had students that go into SAM and they don't see an actual deadline on any of these cases or quizzes. And As the course leader, I've done that on purpose. I set these to be open for the entire semester. Now, some professors, based on their preference and their rules with their online sections, they do create deadlines simply for the purpose of keeping students using the software on a regular basis and not just doing all the cases all at once. But you would be very well informed about that. And that would be a bit unusual. And that is, professors are allowed to do that if they want to. Most of my professors and the way I do my courses, we don't do that. We set the deadlines in FOL and they're always here. So you know when stuff is due. And then it's your responsibility to simply have it submitted by that time in MindTap. And we know exactly when you submitted it, literally down to the minute. So if something's like a little bit late, some professors are maybe okay with that. There's probably some flexibility there. But if you're like 12 hours late, a day late, 3 days late, you're not going to get credit. And you need to be aware of that. What you can't do is go to your professor and say, oh, I didn't know anything. I didn't think there were any deadlines because I kept logging into MindTap and there weren't any dates anywhere. MindTap is where you complete your work. All the deadlines are here. Now, we can set deadlines in MindTap, but that would mean that as soon as the deadline passes, anybody who missed the week 2 case, for example, if they don't get it done by Sunday night at the end of week 2, then they don't get to do it. And that's not going to work in this course, because even if you miss the work, you're still going to want to go back and do the work before you take the test in week 6, which you can't see that there, obviously, because it's in between 5 and 7. And make sure you understand it and go through the process, because the best way you can learn this stuff is by doing it. It's always like that with the computer application. You guys know that. You're digital natives, most of you. Even my Gen X and Second Life later coming back to school type of students, you know that. Like, the best way to learn how to use something in terms of technology on a computer, digital, is to use it. So we don't set deadlines in here. It does not mean that this due date is not enforced. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that. And we covered chapters and where to find the script. And this is like my entire spoken script. And because I use a very good microphone when I record these videos, that's something else that students have. The occasional student uses that to kind of help them get back. And you can text keyword search in the script to find certain things if the chapters aren't locating you precisely enough. Okay, here we go. Let's start case 2. So we went in here. It asked for our access code. We haven't purchased that yet. No big deal. We still have time until the end of week 2 to do the case. We click on the case, just like last week, and it'll open up the start page. There'll be some information there about what we're about to do. And you click start, and you go through the same process you've already been taught in week 1. So we're going to download the files. I taught you both last week. You can download all, or I generally just download the files one at a time, so I don't have to worry about the blocker coming up and asking me if for sure I want to download all that stuff. There, downloaded. No, my downloads folder is pretty clean. I would advise you guys to do the same thing if you can. So we've got the instructions open, and that is my guidance always, to open the instructions first and enable editing. Another reminder from last week, one of the things we learned, most of you will have to click that on your Macs and or PCs if you downloaded it from the web, especially if you're on campus. Where am I at? So that's a lot of stuff at the beginning of this video that took up almost 15 minutes to the point of us now starting in the instructions. You won't have that with the rest of the videos unless there's other preliminary stuff we need to cover. It's because it's only the second case. There's a lot of things I like to remind my students about, but of course there are the chapters, so students can skip around if they want to. So as always, the first thing it'll tell you to do is change the name of the start file. So I'm going to go back to downloads, which I have here, and I'm simply going to right click, rename. And again, I'm still on Windows 10. So when I right click rename, it looks a little bit different than you do on Windows 11. In Windows 11, it's up at the top and it's got this little sort of renamey looking box with an arrow on it. You can also simply just do a long click, like click on the name, and it should allow you to get in there. And on a Mac, it's just command click rename. And all you have to do is change the 1 to a 2. So we spent a lot of time on this last week. Do not retype the .xlsx, whether you see it or not. Your computer settings may be that you don't see it, and that doesn't mean you type it out. It's still there. If you type it out, then you have it there twice. All you do is change the 1 to a 2. You don't add a period. You don't take away a period. You don't type out the extension if you don't see the extension. You just change the 1 to a 2 and then open the file and go back to the instructions and start on step 1. So this is going to be a fairly quick case because this is predominantly formatting, and a lot of this is similar to what you've encountered in Microsoft Word. You can see in Microsoft Word, if I'm on the Home tab, there we go. So that just opened up. So let's enable editing here, and then we'll jump back over to the instructions. So back on the Home tab, you can see right on the Home tab, back in Word, sorry, on the Home tab from Word, you have this whole Styles section. And at some point, some of you have probably used some of the heading styles that are available, some of these preformed styles. There's a title style. When you're doing papers, I think some of these are pretty convenient. So relatively in the same location, Excel has something like that too. And even for the very first step, you can see under Cell Styles, I actually think it's a little more organized in the Excel workspace, the way they have the styles set up. So you can see in the very first step, it says your Young Chow is the business manager at Sharma Cybersecurity Consulting. She asks you to format the workbook she uses to analyze monthly sales to make the data easier. So as usual, you're helping somebody out at your work. You're better at Excel than they are. Let's get this thing sorted out. So on the sales analysis worksheet, change the theme of the workbook to Office 2013 to 22 and use the standard theme for the company. So what we're doing here, just jump back to Excel here, is we're going to leave the Home tab. And let's bounce back over. Why are we not? Let's get our Alt tab set up. There we go. So now we're back and forth from the two files we want to be back and forth on. Notice that it didn't tell you you had to leave the first worksheet. You don't, actually. When you're changing the theme of a workbook, a theme is a collection of different formattings and fonts that they've deemed to all look pretty good together. And there's a bunch of different themes they have available in Word and Excel, by the way. And this is under the Page Layout tab. So we're going to leave the Home tab, which we didn't leave the Home tab much on the last one. We did go to Page Layout, I think, near the end. So go to Page Layout, excuse me, and at the very beginning of Page Layout, you have themes. And you'll notice when you first open these files that are downloaded from the SAM site, they don't actually have a theme even identified yet. And you're to choose this one, Office 2013 to 2022. You'll notice like a little tiny bit of a margin change there. If you were to switch to the sales analysis worksheet and change it, which they didn't tell you to do, we can do that actually. Because it doesn't matter which sheet you're on when you change the theme. Actually, you're not going to see much change here because there's no formatting yet. But you might see the fonts change. Yeah, font type changes. And some of the sizing, I think, as a result of the font changing, changes. So click that one. It's the second choice. Now, right away from the very first step, there might be a minor issue here if you are using a computer where you have not upgraded your version of Office. So very quickly, we're going to take a tiny hiatus. That's step one. That's all of step one. You go to Page Layout. You choose Office 2013 to 22 theme. Click it. You're done. Okay, and then you either go to the sales analysis worksheet then, or you were already there. We're going to jump back over here. And if you go, no, not that one with my million tabs. I have FOL here. This is where we're doing our work. So in here, actually you can go right to the first news item, go there. But if you go to course information, go to required resources, one of the links right below where you buy your book was, of course, to download Microsoft Office. And I went over this extensively in that second video in week 2. You need to have Office 365 installed. If you don't, there are going to be little things like that that are going to bug you. Office 2019 might have that version of a theme if you happen to have that. I think 21 does. But post Office 21, everything is 365. So there really is no reason you shouldn't download this and just replace whatever version you have there. I know I said last week, and that was for week 1 case, 2016, 2019, 21, or 365 would have all been okay. Actually, maybe not 2016, because I don't know if Flash Fill is in there. But as long as you see the theme, you're totally fine. If you don't see the theme, you need to upgrade your version of MS Office. And if you don't want to do that, then you need to contact your professor in the case that you get that step incorrect and just say, I wasn't able to update my version of Office for this case. Can you help me out with that step? Obviously, you'd know what you were doing if you noticed that it wasn't the same theme. So moving on to step 2 then. we are going to, so that was it for step one, literally one click. Go to the page layout tab, go to themes, choose the theme. Start by formatting the headings on the sales analysis worksheet. So now we're going to the sales analysis worksheet. First thing we're going to do is merge and center. This is a big deal in Excel. Merge it because you're often dealing with sets of data or a collection of data where it takes up an amount of space like this, A to G. And then you have a title. And even if you make this title really big, there's no way to get it directly centered above there without turning that all into one cell. And that's what this step is. So if they tell you to merge and center over to G1, what you're going to do is highlight A1 to G1, go back to the Home tab, and you're going to use the Merge and Center button, which is this right here. If you happen to have a monitor that's large enough that it actually says Merge and Center, then that's pretty cool. But you probably can just see the button. And if you go into the drop-down, you can merge cells, unmerge, you can merge across. There's different versions of it. 99% of the time when I'm trying to do stuff like this and center something over a collection of data, I'm just merging and centering, which if you just click the button is the default one. So you see what it did. So it turned it into one cell, which is now considered A1. So there is no more G1, F1, E1. It just goes right to H when you get there. So typically when you have instructions like that, they want you to do something to it. It will tell you now edit the merged cell A1 and do this to it, which I think is coming right up here actually. So that's merge and center. So it's literally highlighting what you want to merge and center in the click of a button. You can also merge and center down if you wanted this to merge and center into this cell and then, vertical center it, vertical align it. You can do that as well, which I think there's a step on this case. In case there's not, there's probably one on the quiz. Apply heading one cell style to the range A1. So it still calls it that range, which is nice they're doing that for you. So there's no confusion with students. So that, I keep bumping the mic, the P popper thing there. I'm going to move that a little bit. So highlight that A1 to G1, which will only say A1 in the name box, but that is A1 to G1, and choose a style, heading 1. So from the Home tab, cell styles are there. Cell styles, heading 1, right there. You just pick the one called heading 1, and it puts all those formats on there for you. So that's where, if you were on a different theme, the heading 1 version in the other theme would look a little different, right? Okay, and that's the second part of step 2. Merge and center A2 to G2. And I like that these two steps are separated by a step in the middle because it demonstrates to you when you have content in separate cells and separate rows or separate cells and separate columns and you're trying to merge and center, it's only when you have stuff in one cell and you want to merge into columns that are blank that this works. You can't combine stuff from cells by merge and centering. There's actually a function that'll do that, or you just cut and paste it into the other cell and then merge and center it. I just wanted to explain that as we're doing this. So same merge and center, start at A1, go to G1, click the merge and center button, done. Change the font color of the merge cell in A2 to blue-gray text 2. Again, if you don't have the correct theme, you're going to have a cascade of issues on this case because you might not have the exact correct colors. But this is where the cases get interesting because Sam checks that you pick the right color from the correct location in the color palette. So if you don't have the Office 2013 to 22 theme, my advice to you would be to first let your professor know because you're definitely going to get that first step wrong. I think you will. I'm not able to test this because I have the most updated version of Office like I should have. But when I would just choose the Office theme, which I think I don't know if I mentioned that on step 1, but what you're to do if you don't have that first theme is choose the Office theme. I'll add text in there to do that when I produce the video. So choose the Office theme. So under page layout, you would have just picked the first one if you didn't have that one. And then every time they ask you to do a color, wherever I find the color in the video, you're going to pick whatever color is in that same placement in the palette. So what I'm explaining to you is, hopefully this doesn't happen to any of you. If you just update your Office, you don't have to deal with any of this stuff. But as I'm teaching this, it does teach you a little more about where things are and stuff. So change font color to blue-gray text. Notice how it says fourth column, first row. So whatever the color is in the fourth column in the first row of the theme's color palette, change it to that, even if it doesn't look the same as this. The reason it doesn't look the same is because you had to go with the office theme and not the second theme. So that would have been this one. You just choose that one if you don't have that one. Okay, home tab, colors. Go to, that's your fill can, not that one. Go to font color, and here, these are your standards at the top, and then these are your these are standard theme colors, and your percentage grading down of that color for different shading. So as we go down, it wants blue gray text 2. So it's the first row because there's no percentage on it. See how that one has 80% down here? And it's just first row, fourth column. So go here, first row, fourth column. Fourth, not fifth. Blue gray text 2. So if you had to choose just the Office theme in step 1, which means you need to update your version of MS Office, which I would just do that and then do the case. It doesn't take that long, maybe an hour or something. It's a pretty big file, but if you didn't do that yet, you choose this color in that location, whatever the color is, and do the same thing throughout the rest of the case. I don't want to keep having to bring that up. I just wanted to explain that the first time you chose the color. Notice how it matches that color. And that's all they're trying to do is make things consistent, because the color of heading 1 in this theme happens to be that same color. Okay. And if you wanted to check that and do that yourself, you could have just done what I just did. So moving on, change the font color of the merge cell in A1. Oh, now we're changing that one. That's funny. To California FB. Change the font. Sorry, not the color. Change the font of the merge cell. I was surprised they were going to start changing colors up like that. To California FB. To both of them. Okay, so this you can do both at the same time. They're both right next to each other. Highlight both. Go to font. Go to California FB. So far in this case, I mean, if you've been using Microsoft Word, and it's pretty far down there, so you can start typing it in, and it should autocomplete for you instead of having to scroll down and find it, and then it'll be there, and you can just click on it or hit enter. And we've got that done. If you've used Microsoft Word and changed the fonts ever, you highlight the stuff you want to change and go and change the font. It's exactly the same. So I don't want to overteach that. Let's go to step 3. Hey, let's save our file. That was actually a fair amount of little things for one step. That's step number 2. Control S. Next, Yang needs you to format the report and average sales information to separate it from the other sales data as follows. Change the background color. So that's where the paint can comes in. And similar to Microsoft Word's highlight, I guess, that you would see in Word, of A4 to E4. So go A4 to E4, which is a pre-merged cell they gave you, I think. Oh, no, this is not A4. It's just a bunch of cells with stuff in 1, 2, 3 of them. Okay, so A4 over to E4. Highlight, we learned how to highlight last week, no problem. Gold accent 4 lighter, 80%. 8th column, 2nd row of the theme color. So highlighted those cells, go to the fill can, go to the 8th, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at it. It does say gold accent 4. Go down 1. It'll be gold accent 4, 80%. As long as you sit on it, it should tell you. There. Gold accent 4, lighter 80. Done. Looks kind of like a, what that is, kind of a light peach. And that's done. Format A4, C4, and A12 to bold. Now, bold, you probably don't even have to use the button because you guys know it's Control B, the keyboard shortcut. But why would you do all 3 separately, which will be marked correct if you want to do that, when you could use the Control key trick I showed you last week to highlight non-adjacent stuff and do them all at once. So A4, now hold down the Control key, C4, still holding down the Control key, I just click A12. Bold or Control B, done. A4, C4, A12. Or you can do them separately. Or you can put them in a name box separated by a comma, which I think takes longer. I think the fastest way is using the Control or Command key on your Mac. Allows you to do that non-adjacent stuff, non-adjacent highlights. Format B4 to use a date format with 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and a 2-digit year to use the standard date format for company reports. So this gets a little hairy too. It's weird that we're into week 2 and there's potentially a couple issues here. If you haven't upgraded your version of Office, you might have an issue with the theme. And if you haven't fixed your language settings, you might have an issue here as well. So let me show you what I mean, and this is easy to fix. So I'll just show you what to do in case you do have different language settings. So when you go to this cell, which is B4, you'll see a date in there. And if you look in the formula bar, you'll probably see something different. Yours should look similar to this. If it looks even different than that, it's because your date format simply isn't adjusting into a version that would be English United States. So the way this was put in, it has the year, the month, and the day. And what they want you to do is set it up so it's 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year in that order. So when you sit on a cell and it's a date or accounting or percentage, like this is actually currency formatting here. Accounting formatting here. Currency is actually under here. Currency, which is a little different than accounting. It doesn't align it all the way to the left, and it doesn't have the decimals exactly the same. So there's all these different formats. And if you don't see what you want, because you don't see the date with 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year, you need to go to more number formats, which you can get to from here if you don't see what you want in the drop-down, or anytime you're sitting on a cell and you want to see more that you can do with it, or a selection of cells, then you see available on the ribbon, you click the expand arrow, and the expand arrow opens up this window, this dialog box that is like the original Windows and the way it used to look all the way back into like the 80s. This box has always been there. We've just made it a little less prominent in the way the menus work and how well that Microsoft has. And if you have English United States here, you should be able to scroll around not very far, and it's right there. 2-digit day, 2-digit month, 2-digit year. Now, notice it's not the same date. It's just giving you an example. It's not going to make that, whatever that is, March, 2-digit month, day, year. Wait, it's month, day, year. Jeez, I gotta keep going. They want month, day, year. Yes, correct. Okay, so I have it right away when I click the expand and see all these options for different date formats, because I have English United States. If you don't see that, you need to go into the drop down here. You probably, if you bought your computer in Canada or another country, that's probably what you see there is English, that country, English Canada. And this is where I'm going to direct you when we get to the accounting date format to the stuff in FOL that teaches you how to fix that. For right now, you can do this step without having to change anything. You just use the drop down here, choose English United States, which I was already on actually. And then you should be able, and your numbers might be different. Don't worry about that. And then you choose 2-digit day, 2-digit month, 2-digit year, and you click OK. So it's still May 29th, May 4th, 2029. It's just formatted it differently. I haven't been able to check with this brand new version of this case at the end of 2025 if Sam would mark it correct if those weren't in that exact order and you use 2-digit day, month, year from English Canada. I think with the previous version of this Sam case in 2019 Microsoft Office, it did still mark that one right. I'm just trying to teach you how to be 100% precise on this step and do it correctly. Okay, and that would be done by doing what I just did. Moving on, step number 4. Where are we at for step 4? 34, yeah, we're okay. We'll still be done in like 50 minutes. Format A6 through E6, and again, a different range. So not single cells that are different ranges and not adjacent, but 2 different selections. So you can do the same thing. Highlight A6 to E6, and then use the control, hold down the control key and highlight A13 and G13. So, oops, I want to go back to Excel, minimize that. Okay, and then back to my Word file, there. A6 to E6, A13 to G13. So A6 over to E6. I highlighted it, I let go of the mouse, I'm done. Now I'm going to hold down the control key and highlight A13 over to G13. Notice how it's a little bit further. So some students just by default might not highlight all the way over. And that's an easy fix if you need to fix that mistake in a SAM case and resubmit. We learned how to do that last week. The rest of these videos will just show you how to get 100. And once that's highlighted, we are making it italic, which is Control I or just click the I right here. That's it. And you can do them separately, and Sam will still mark it right. I just think it's easier to do them both at the same time. Apply horizontal centering, which is just centering. The same center button you're used to in Word, which would be right here. 2 separate ranges. So I would keep using the Control and or if you're on a Mac, the Command key. We're going to highlight B6 to E6 and B13 to G13. So B6 to E6. And B, so almost the same stuff I just highlighted, just not with the first column. And we're going to make that horizontal centered, which is just center. They're specifically referring to horizontal center because they're about to give you something that you're going to vertically center. Okay, so that was A all the way over to G, E, and G, and that was B over to E and G. And we did them using the control key again, just like I just did. Change the background color of the range. So this is back to the first range. A6, D6, A13 to blue, accent 1 lighter 60, fifth column, third row. So highlight that, control key, highlight that, go to the paint can, fifth column over, third row down, blue accent 1, lighter 40. Just go back and check, make sure that was, it's 60 actually, sorry. I still have them highlighted, I can fix that very easily. It's 60. Yeah, I went 4 down. That was it. See, and if I do stuff like that in the context of a video, I'm not going to go back and fix that. I'm hoping that you're watching the video, and that's in a sense almost showing you what the real world is really like. You might, but I fix it immediately. There won't be, ultimately, when you finish a step, there won't be mistakes in a video that you need to go back and undo. Change the background color of A7 to A10, A14 to A23. So let's go A7 to A10. Control key, A14 to A23. This background color is going to be same column but second row. 5 over second row. So all from the same family, just different shades. So we're really kind of smoothing things out here, making it look nice. Young wants the total rows in each table to stand out. She asks you to apply the total cell style. So we did a heading cell style up there. There's also one called total. And we're going to do this to, again, non-adjacent ranges. So at this point, clearly, you can see you're going to want to be doing this the way I taught you by using the control key and highlighting those two at the same time. A10, E10, B23, G23. So A10 to E10. Was it A23? B23. I noticed there wasn't anything in A over to G. With those all highlighted, same way you did colors, same way you did italic and bold, you go to cell styles and choose total. And it puts that accounting double line and single line over. You don't have to make that, it just did it for you. Pretty cool, eh? So that's good. Save your file. That's a bunch of stuff you've done now. The row headings in the sales to data table need to be formatted so it is clear they each apply to 3 rows of data. Format the row headings like this. So there's a lot of steps in this case, unlike 5 and step 1 that involve like an ABC, ABCD. So it's a little tedious, but it is a very easy case that you should be comfortable with. I love the tool here in part B. I love that tool. I've used it a ton in Microsoft Word. Let's get going here. So merge and center A14 to A16. And then center the contents vertically. Remember how I told you could merge and center up and down, not just across? So go A14 to A16, merge and center, click it. Now, it did it, and it made it one cell, but this is sitting in the bottom. So under alignment, you will see up here, which is funny that it's actually above the horizontal alignment because it's more often used by avid Excel users. This is middle align, it is vertical center. It's not actually called vertical center, it's called middle align. But SAM cases will often want you to sort of sort that out with the instructions your professor gave you, which I'm giving you right now. So now, as I had explained to you previously, you can't multiply select ranges when you're doing merge and center of other cells that have stuff in it. It's basically when you have blank cells surrounding a single cell with something in it, you merge and center that. So now we've merged and centered the one selection there. And now they want you to do the same thing to A17 to A19 and A20 to 22. And they're going to use the Format Painter tool to do that. So this is really cool. I'll show you in the context of the Word file here. Let's say, see how this text is blue? Let's say I wanted this text down here formatted the same way, but I didn't want to figure out which blue it was. I wanted it to be. So highlight some of the text. Doesn't matter how much really. I mean, and just click the paintbrush. and then your cursor changes to a paintbrush, and you go down here and select all the text that you want to be that color. It's that simple. So going back to the spreadsheet, the worksheet, we're going to sit on the cell we just merged and centered vertically. So we merged and centered and then aligned vertically. And we're going to click the paintbrush, and then we're going to sit here. And then we're going to go back and go, well, you could do either one actually. Then we're going to click the paintbrush again, and then go to here, and we've done those two selections. So there you go. Something else I was going to tell you. Oh, yeah. When you do that one down at the bottom, make sure you don't highlight into 23. The instructions are very specific. They only needed to go to 22. Okay. And when you're using tools like this, another neat thing to pay attention to is when you hover over it, sorry, like I taught you in our very first exploration of Excel, where you're trying to figure out what something is and you hover over it. When you hover over tools like this, they give you a pretty nice explanation of how they work. And Format Painter really, I mean, you can't mess it up. It tells you exactly what's going on. In fact, there's one thing I don't think they have there, which is if you double click the paintbrush, then you can keep format painting things until you hit escape, instead of having to go back and keep format copying the stuff. So it's a way to, it's not very often you need to use that, but double click would mean that you maintain the paintbrush on the cursor even after your first format paint. So kind of neat stuff, just adding a little bit of extra information in there. You didn't need to do that here, I'm just showing you. Okay, so we got those format painted, they're all merged and centered. We got part C to complete still. I do want to state here, and I'll put a little note in the video, I totally skipped over this part in my initial recording, so I'm having to go back and add this now so you can see. Again, you're always going to get 100% completion steps, but once in a while something like this happens where I'm going to now go and complete this part of step 6 right in order. You guys aren't actually going to notice what happened for a minute here. So I'm going to go and complete this part of step 6, and you saw I have these all merged and centered vertically. I made sure I didn't do that one down to there. So now you can highlight all 3 of them, and you're going to rotate the text up, like rotate it up. And this is done using the rotate button from the same menu we've been using here. Orientation. So you go to orientation. If you're not sure, you're going to have to click it twice anyway to get it to rotate 90 degrees. If you don't want to have to multiple click and you're not sure which way to rotate up or down, just go here to Format Cell Alignment and just type in 90 degrees. And hit enter, and then you're done. And as I try and keep reminding you, I didn't do it much last week. If you scroll down to the image, you can see that's how it's set up to look. So as I already mentioned, when we move forward in the video now past this step and we go on to step 7 and all the rest of the steps are fine, you're not going to see those actually rotated. Most of you probably won't even notice, or you're going to notice now that I brought it up. Just ignore it, okay? And when you go to submit, as long as you just completed part C with me, which initially I just glossed right over in my first take of the recording, I'm just adding this in there now. Just ignore it if you see them not rotated. And when you submit, they should be rotated and you'll be in good shape. Moving on to step 7. So this is officially the place where I'm going to say, hey, I keep bringing up language settings. It's not that difficult to change your language settings. Every time I'm working on something, in a case, you're going to see me in English United States because those are the language settings that are most commonly used with institutional software in North America, Canada, and the US. So my computer from Fanshawe, because we use so much educational software that is designed by American publishers, all the computers, even the ones on campus, are set to English United States. That's not some pro-American nonsense. We still love Canada. It's just the way things are set up, generally speaking, in terms of software. And that's how all the SAM cases are set up. So if you didn't see the American version of that date back at the end of step 3, this is the time where you probably should just save your file, close it up, and go and fix your language settings. I'm not going to demonstrate fixing my language settings on a computer that already has the language settings that we are talking about. But I will go here and show you in the context of the week 1 and week 2 content where that is. So if you go to the week 1 content, I bring it up in week 1 right from the get-go, because I want to make sure you know that this could become a thing. So you might as well fix it now. It's very easy to do. I provide some simple instructions here. based on Google structured listings. And you can also just YouTube it. It'll even be easier. But this should be applicable. I mean, it's applicable right now, active nearing the end of 2025. It should be still applicable for years moving forward. Usually, like I've mentioned a couple times, these videos, every time they're updated, remain in the course for at least 3 to 4 years. So that's how you change the language settings. It's in the week 1 module, and I believe I put it in the week 2 module as well. So what you see me working in as I complete this step will be English United States, and I will not have any issues getting this step incorrect. Now, according to Cengage, this was an issue a lot of us brought up as professors over the last 5 to 10 years, actually going all the way back to the 2012 version, that it was a bit frustrating that the grading protocol for steps like this was not set in a way that as long as the student chose accounting and they chose the right decimal places, that it shouldn't matter which language setting they're in. And the latest publisher rep told me that it shouldn't be an issue, but hey, you know what? It's good to know how to change your language settings anyway. In the case you get that step wrong, and you might, and I'm guessing it's still going to be an issue. I'm just guessing. You should change your English settings to English United States. On the tests, we have arranged tests that don't have any issues like this, but hey, if you're going to be doing business in Canada, it's better to be at English United States anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do these steps. It's non-adjacent ranges again, B7 to D10 and C14 to G23. So B7 to D10, let's go back to the Excel file. Okay, B7 to D10, C14 to G23. So B7 over to D10. That makes sense. It looks like we're going to do percentage with those ones. Obviously, they're decimals. B7 to C14 to G23. C14 over to G down to 23. So here's what's funny. And you think Excel might do this a different way or put like a little A next to the currency symbol. That's not actually currency, even though it's a currency symbol. Currency, which is slightly different, is in the drop down and it's currency. Accounting, on the other hand, is the currency symbol right on the ribbon. So you don't have to go into the drop down and don't go in here and start messing around with it as long as you have English United States. Now that is a way that some of my students told me they were able to fix it. They went in there and chose English United States. And even though my computer's set to English United States, you can see the first one is English Canada, but I'm not picking one. I'm set to English United States and I'm just hitting that. And that is the way to get it correct 100% for sure. And I unhighlighted my first range. What the heck? I forgot to hit the control key. So I'm going to go back and do it to that one too. So you're going to see that doing those separately, even though I've been teaching you the whole case to highlight them together, like highlight this, hold down the control key, then highlight that. Still doing them separately, Sam's still going to mark it right. Now with them both highlighted, I am going to change it to 0 decimal places. So I don't have to re-highlight both. So those two ranges still highlighted. You're going to reduce decimal places right here with this. That's increase, sorry. Reduce 1, 2. Decrease decimals by 2. And then we're going to do percentage for E7 to E10. And it doesn't, 1 decimal. Okay. So let's highlight E7 to E10. Percentage is obviously just the percent sign. So I'm not spending a ton of time exploring the number format menu and all the different things you can do in here. This is set to general right now. It's not even set to number. As soon as you set to percentage, it'll recognize what it is. And you want 1 decimal, so you increase by 1, and it should look like that. But there are a lot of options deeper in that menu, and that's what the SAM quizzes are going to be for, and you'll see that they help you to explore these things you learn on the cases at a deeper level. Young asks you to identify, conditional formatting, such an awesome tool. I love that it's coming up in week 2. This is going to be on like 5 different cases. So this is a really cool tool where you highlight a selection of cells and then you can single out and identify, emphasize certain cells by setting conditions on how they would be highlighted, how they would be turned a different color, made bigger, bolder. You can do all different kinds of formatting. So this first version of conditional formatting we're going to do is quite a simple one. Highlight G14 to G22. So go to G14 down to 22. Do not include the total. That doesn't make sense. If you're kind of pulling something out of a series of numbers that are all fairly close together, you wouldn't be including the total. So G14 to G22. As soon as you do that, conditional formatting is on the Home tab. That's how oftenly it's used. I don't know if it was on the Home tab back in 2012, but I know it's been there since 2016 Office. And you're going to highlight anything with a value of less than 40,000 using light red fill and dark red text. So when you highlight this and you go to conditional formatting, the first couple times we use this, it's going to be under highlight cell rules. There's top bottom rules. You can highlight percentages. You can put in little mini charts in behind based on the number, color scales, icon. It's pretty cool. So we're just doing greater than, not greater than or equal to, but just straight up greater than. Actually, I don't know if they have that. They just have greater than, less than, equal to. So greater than 40,000. So you don't need the formatting. You can just type in 40,000. And then the default is actually what they asked for, but you can make it any format you want. There's a few other defaults, and you can do stuff just like this. You can go into custom format and do whatever you want, but you don't have to do that here because they'd said make it light red fill and dark red text, which means you just choose the default and you're done. And it's less than, not greater than. Holy cow, I should go back and fix this. But no, I just want to make, it's good. You're paying attention, right? So cancel that. It's actually highlight form rows. Less than 40,000. Hey, that's good. I almost screwed that up. Here's what you want to, Here's what you want to do if you did it wrong. So that's less than 40,000 light red fill. That's going to be correct. And of course, and I never show you guys this early enough in the case, you can always scroll down and make sure it looks the same down here in the images, which you'll always get. Even on the tests, you'll get the pictures to look at. If you screwed that up, and this isn't true with data bars, certain conditional formatting rules you can just overwrite with the correct rule. But in a SAM case, if you screw up a conditional formatting rule, you need to keep the cells highlighted or re-highlight them, go to manage rules and sit on it and delete it, and then go back and do the correct rule. Okay, so, and that's, I think there's a quiz question that asks you to edit a rule once it's made, and that's how you would do that. Okay, you'd highlight the cells and then go and edit it. Okay, save your file, moving on. That was step number 8, we're almost done. Young also wants you to calculate, so we're gonna have at least one step on here that had to do with the function. We learned sum and count last week. Those are very easy functions. This one works the same way, average. You just use the name of the function average and then put in parentheses what you're averaging. So we're averaging B7 to B9, and we're doing this in cell E4. So if we go to E4, okay, which is over here, and we use the auto sum version of average, it's not going to know what to pick up, but it's still helpful because we didn't have to type it out. And then you just, sitting in the parentheses, go and pick up the range. And it might pick up something else that isn't correct, and then you just overwrite that by picking up the correct range. You can also just go equals, start typing out average, double click it, it puts the parenthesis in for you, and then same thing, you pick up the range, which is B7 to B9. It's that simple. You hit enter and you're done. I'm not going to overteach that one. We spent a lot of time learning how those simple functions work last week. Increase the indent. I used Excel for years, didn't even know you could indent. I would go into like try and add spaces, which did not work when you, especially when you have numerical data in the cell. Increase the indent of the contents of cell C4 to separate the text from the date in cell B4. So they're not so like tight together, because if you don't print the grid lines, it just looks like they're part of the same cell. Right, and there's printing grid lines, by the way. I'm glad I brought that up. I don't think we had that in the first 2 cases. It's when you go to print, usually there's an option to allow you to print the grid lines or not. It depends on the printer. Sheet. Grid lines, right there. So you can print grid lines in the print options, which is kind of cool. Right? And that way you get the separation if you need them. There's also the option to turn the grid lines on and off in terms of view, which is something totally different. That's like, and that's under the view menu. You can turn off your grid lines. And then it's, I think you can do it under page layout as well. Yeah, right there, grid lines view. And there you can set them to print as well. Print or not print. But sometimes it's just, you know, it is really close together there. You can see that. So what they're trying to do here is just clean that up a little bit. So go to C4 and increase the indent to separate the text in C4. It does not say how many times to increase the indent, which means you just do it once. So go C4 and go back to the home tab. I was just screwing around there. And these are indent. Increase indent, decrease indent. So if you get a quiz question in SAM this week and it says increase the indent twice, you just click it twice. Here, you just click it one time. Indent is increased. And Control save. Haven't saved in a while. Move on to the next step. Find and replace. I use this constantly. I really hope that you guys have used this before in Word. I write opinions of value for different properties in real estate, and I often have to, I reuse a lot of the same language, and I just replace the name of the address, which is kind of cool. So you're going to find and replace any use of the word test with testing. Okay, find and replace all, so to correct the name of the category. So don't highlight any more than one cell. Just sit in a cell with nothing highlighted, and then go and use find and replace. So this would be under the magnifying glass, and it's Control H is actually the shortcut, which it tells you when you hover over it. So we're going to look for test, and we're going to replace with testing with a capital T or not. Do it exactly how Sam says. Yep, capital T. And we will simply replace all because it said to replace any of them. You can replace and keep finding next, but if it says get rid of them all, so just replace all. Yeah, there's only 2 of them anyway. And then you click OK, and anywhere the word test was, which I didn't even have to look for it, there's one there, it's been replaced with testing. Make sure you spell that correctly or you will get marked incorrectly in SAM. So that's one of those steps that involves a little bit of a higher level process to get it replaced. But SAM won't know if you use find and replace to do it. You could actually just type it in there in those 2 cells and it would still mark it correct. And again, you can scroll down and make sure everything matches down here. And that was step 11. And then finally, step 12, we're going to do some printing settings and then we're going to save and submit and we should have a 100%. So insert a page break to start a new page at row 12. So just stick your mouse in row 12 and then go to page layout. And go to breaks, insert page break. So whatever row you're sitting in, it will always start the break right at the top margin of that row. So if you're sitting in row 11, it would have started at 11. So you need to sit in 12 and then insert the page break in 12. Set the margins to narrow. This is just the click of a button. You've probably done this, and this is the same menu we're on. Margins narrow. And then set rows 1 and 2 as print titles. So be careful with this because you don't highlight rows 1 and 2 before you do this. You just go to print titles and where it says rows to repeat at top, not print area. Down here, rows to repeat at top, you can go 1:2, the same way you would do a range. Or you click in here and you can highlight 1 and 2 and it goes 1 to 2. A lot of people mess this step up because they put it up in print area. They just put it in the wrong place. And then they're looking at their sheet and everything looks fine, but it's not in the right place. So then you click OK, and that is set, and you don't really see anything change, but it's done. And then finally, create a custom footer. So now we're going to talk about header footers, and then that wraps up the case. So create a custom footer for the worksheet. In the left section, display the current page number in the header footer element, and the footers. Here, let's just open up. So first thing you're going to do is go to, you can actually do this under the view tab too. I think you can go to header footer view, page break, page layout. But the easiest way to get in there is to go to insert and you go to header footer, which will be under text if your monitor is consolidating a bit. Okay. So go to all the way to the far there and you'll see header footer and it will always start you in the header, but it's brought you into what I believe is page layout view. If I click out of here, view. Yeah, it is page layout view. So you could have got into it by going to that too. So it's brought you into page layout view and it always starts you in the header and you need to click back in here, scroll down a bit and then click into the footer. So you just need to go to page layout view or go to insert header footer to get it to go. And once you do that, you're going to see, I think this is the first time we've encountered this since we started using Excel. You're going to see this extra menu pop up. Okay, it's a whole other tab in the ribbon with the menu header, like a tab header. And this is all the stuff you can do to the header footer. And as soon as you leave the header footer, that menu goes away. So this introduces you to some more functionality of the ribbon that you probably encountered in Microsoft Word. See how it's gone now? So also from there, you can switch back and forth to header footer. So that's 3 ways to get in and out of it. So you're dealing with the footer in this step. If you were dealing with header on the quiz, you would go to the section of the header they wanted you to put the stuff, and you go to the header footer menu. As soon as you get in there, you go to that menu to add the stuff. So we're going to go to footer. And under footer, we're going to put the page number. And you don't type this out. These are all preset tools. In the left footer section, display current page number. So go to the left footer and click page number. And that's the code that will display the page number. You can also add number of pages. You can do different stuff like that. And then in the center footer, display the sheet name. So go here and click in the center and then choose sheet name. And you can choose you can put all kinds of, you can put the file name up in the top of the header. You can do all sorts of stuff. And once that's in there, you can actually just save and close your file. You don't have to click back in and leave that and go back to normal view. You don't have to do that. It's going to mark you correct as long as the stuff is right in your header footer. So if you turn it in and you've left it in page layout view, or you save the file and we're still sitting in the footer, that's totally fine too. Just save it, close it, and submit it. So here we go. I have saved all my changes, so when I close, it's not going to prompt me to save. Oh, it is asking me to save it again. I must have just changed something. Oh boy. Okay, so now before we submit, I just caught a glitch, I guess we'll call it. This happens very rarely. I'm kind of annoyed this is happening in week 2. But you saw me complete step number 5 correctly previously in the video. We already did step 5. This was this step right here. Now, somewhere along the way, as we added additional formatting to some of these same cells, it made a change that is leading Sam to believe that the total cell style is no longer set on those cells. So at the end of your case, what I want you to do, and if you already closed it, reopen it. I want you to open the case back up. You're going to repeat step 5 for me. And I'm just trying to avoid you having to resubmit. If you already submitted and you did get step 5 wrong, just open the original file back up and redo it, and you will be marked correct. That's all I had to do. And as soon as I saw it, I knew that's what it was. So step 5, it looks like it's done. Like it did in my file. It did the first time I opened it too. It totally looks like it's complete, exactly like it was at the end of step 5. I want you to highlight these ranges again. You can do them separately or together. Hit the control key, highlight the other one, go back to cell styles and click total. So you're repeating step 5. And then close your file, save the changes, and then you will get step 5 correct. So that little addition on the end before we submit is showing you the full 100% series of steps you'll take to earn 100%. Sorry, all the steps you'll take to earn 100% every time. I always like to show the video and correct any mistakes that are made. That wasn't a mistake. We didn't make a mistake. It's just depending on the settings on the computer, that might happen. That might not happen to all of you, but it did happen to me. Some of the changes I made with the accounting format, maybe percentage, even though the border and the font type and everything, that was still there, it didn't think it was still in the total cell style. This will happen very rarely. I've already test drove the 2 tests, so to speak, and there are no issues with that one. This one I did this one at home in August and I didn't pick up on that. It didn't happen to me. So I'm glad that happened because now I've shown you before the submission portion of the video how to correct it. So let's get back to the SAM screen we were on for submission, which was over here. We go here. You can also drag and drop it right in like I showed you last week. Go here, downloads. Should have gone there as the last file's in. You can see it doesn't show like that it's open. Right here, it'll tell you if the file name's wrong. It always gives you the correct file there. So this is all review from last week. Submit. And we are going to look at our grade summary report. Download. Throw it in the downloads and open it up. And again, if you open it up and it's not 100, you look at that report to see about the changes you're going to make, and then you go back to the original file and open it and make the changes there. So there you have it, 100%. And again, I want to make sure you notice that part in the video at 1 hour and 1 minute where I had acknowledged that I tried to submit it, which I didn't show in the recording, and it marked step five wrong, even though it wasn't wrong. And I think this is just the result of the accounting and the percentage format changing the cells in a way that for some reason Sam didn't see the total cell style anymore. Because when I tried it near the end of August, it actually worked, but I was on a different computer. So different settings, different computers. To be safe, every student should simply do that. They do the whole case exactly as it's shown in the video, and then at the very end, you redo step 5. And then you save it and close it, and you should have 100%. So that's it for this case's demonstration, and they will get a bit shorter until the cases get longer, and then they aren't that short. But the first couple lecture videos are a bit longer because at the beginning of the course, I'm making sure you guys are comfortable with everything. And then let's just pop back over here. We do have 2 videos in week 1, so I wanted to remind you of that. Next slide here. Don't forget also, always be saving, always be closing. And when you close, it tells you to save it. And then don't forget the 1% extra credit. If you have paid for your MindTap access code, you can take a picture with your phone. You can do a screen snip, a PDF, whatever, showing that you did purchase it. Just put it in the submissions box in FOL. Your professor will give you 1% extra credit for that. And don't forget, there's another video in week 2. You can watch that right after this. So this introduces you to the SAM quizzing system, and there will not need to be any further videos because we don't need to demonstrate all the quiz questions. All the answers to your cases, all the steps you do in the cases are in these videos. We show you how to do every case and get 100. And then the quizzes, there is a training module right below it that will show you how to do every question on the quiz. So you literally have the answers. So the video in week 2 will show you how the quizzes work and how to start using them and how to use the training to get the answers. And then you just do that every week after that. You don't need another video for it. So go check out that video and I'll see you in the next one. And then I'll see you again in week 3 for the case demo.